Hello and welcome to a brand new episode. My name is Pat Carrick.
And I'm David Mayer.
And this is the show where we have no choice but to drive 100 miles to the closest cinema to watch the latest movie so we can help you decide whether it's worth the drive. And you can thank the video quality to our friend Ryan back here.
We've got some new gadgets, we're trying them out.
Wave, Ryan.
Hi. So on this episode we're going to see Thor Ragnarok. It's directed by Taika Waititi and it stars Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Mark Ruffalo and a bunch of other wonderful people, and we are pretty excited, as you can no doubt tell. It follows the story of Thor, the third edition of the Thor franchise. Thor is in prison and has to fight his way out of prison and race to discover what is going on with Odin and what has happened to Asgard.
I'm very excited. This has been my most anticipated movie of the year, which I mentioned in our last video where we got in depth on our anticipation and excitement for the film. Apart from Star Wars, I've been pumped for this all year. Word on the street is I've got good reason to be. I'm excited.
Well, I mean, I'm quite excited as well, but as I said last week, pretty apprehensive. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it fits into the Marvel Universe. I am slightly worried about the rumours of the level of jokes and the hilarity involved. I'm pretty convinced this is going to be a fantastic movie. I'm worried that maybe it's not going to be a great MCU addition.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah. We'll have to find out.
It's alright. We have our dramatic Marvel films, we have our comedic ones. I think this will have a nice blend of both. Alright, so we've made it to a different location this time. We just said goodbye to my friends who updated our audio-visual equipment. Shout out to Ryan and Tara, thank you so much. I'm going to miss you.
Now all that's left for us to do is explore our new location and find somewhere to park. We managed to find another cinema that was the same distance away.
Watch this maneuver. Oh yeah, that is how it's done.
So there you go. We have arrived safely at yet another cinema. Almost safely, yet another cinema. And we will be back in a couple of hours with our review of Thor Ragnarok. Woo! Cold today.
The cinema warmed my heart.
The alarm bells are ringing for another review. Yay. Initial thoughts, Pat?
I really enjoyed it, but I didn't love it.
I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't love it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it sounds like I disliked more of it than you did. There was parts of that film I actively disliked.
Yeah.
For me, it was, as I feared, very over the top on the comedy.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the jokes, there was no need for. They had no place in the movie. A lot of them were just put in for the sake of having a joke, and very much like I said about Doctor Strange in the preview episode, a lot of them either didn't land or came right at the end of something that was quite dramatic and just ruined the tone.
So you've walked out with a bit of a sour taste in your mouth.
Yes, I think it had a real identity crisis. I think there was 2, maybe even 3 different movies that they didn't really manage to amalgamate into one overall piece. Don't get me wrong, it was a really good film. It was good comedy. If you want to go and see a funny movie that'll make you laugh, go and see Thor Ragnarok. But if you're into it more from the point of view of another movie in the MCU, then it pretty much a miss for me, I think, in that respect. Now, I wasn't expecting it to be really, really interwoven into the MCU. I'm quite happy with it being a sort of more of a standalone piece, but it just didn't have the feel of a comic book superhero film. It had the feel of a comedy. It just so happened to be, Thor.
Well, I'm confused by your comments, Dave, because you said if you want to go see a comedy, you should go see this, but yet you didn't find it very funny.
Well, I did. No, I mean, it was overdone on the jokes.
Yes.
It was massively overdone on the jokes.
I did not disagree with you. I felt it, in the same way. Ooh. I was supposed to get gas.
Ooh. I get the impression, though, that you were more on board with it than I was. The comedy thing, I mean.
Well, yes and no. There was times where I felt that the jokes were really funny. Certainly character performance type humour. But I feel like that's humour. I think humour can be subjective. There were parts in the movie where people were laughing and I wasn't. And there were parts of the movie where I was laughing and people weren't.
But having said that, let's talk about some of the positives. I mean, you'll probably agree with me here. Some of the performances, particularly from the returning characters, were really good.
Absolutely. I think Chris Hemsworth was great. I think there's no thought in my mind that anyone else could really play Thor. I think he does a great job. I think he's a very funny guy. He was funny in some of the other movies, certainly in the Avengers movies, with his kind of fish out of water type thing. And I think they really highlighted that again in this film. And I think, yeah, his timing was great when it comes to the comedy. I can really feel his desperation and emotion when it comes to the task at hand of defeating the ultimate villain of Hela, Cate Blanchett's character. Again, him and Tom Hiddleston bounced off well into each other. They didn't really bang you over the head with reminding you of the history between the two brothers. The highlight for me, most certainly, was Hulk.
Hulk.
I loved
you
him.
were really up for Hulk before it. Did he live up to the expectation?
Absolutely. This is the first time we saw Hulk do a little bit more than just smashing things. And, you know, in the first Avengers film, again, I feel that he's kind of stole the show in that one. Not obviously in the entire film, but when he was on screen, you were just cheering for him.
Yeah.
And in this one again, and this time he kind of had a little bit more emotion to him, and I believe that the director wanted to kind of make him this kind of 2-year-old type Hulk, where he can speak a little bit, he's got emotions, he kind of acts like a big old baby sometimes.
And it also develops, I mean, that was one of the areas which they did try and do a little bit to develop the overall story. Now, we're not going to get a Hulk movie. They've said we're not going to get a Hulk movie. Hulk's only ever going to be a character in the wider world.
Yeah.
But what they have said, what Mark Ruffalo said particularly, that he likes about the next sort of few movies, is that they're going to explore the Hulk story as a slightly larger part within the movies themselves. Now, in this, we kind of got a bit of Planet Hulk, and that kind of moves forward into things like World War Hulk, if you know the Marvel books at all, and you can see the character developing. And I think we are going to get a little bit more time spent on developing the Hulk as a character and not just using him as a character, which I really liked. Goldblum was great.
He's always great. He's the best.
Do you worry that he's just he's just Jeff Goldblum now, though?
Well, I think they cast Jeff Goldblum because they wanted Jeff Goldblum, and I think they let him do what he wanted, and I think he kind of had, you know, his little ways about him that really worked, and I got a lot of my laughs from just his kind of idiosyncrasies.
Idiosyncrasies.
Idiosyncrasies,
as in synchronized. Yeah, you're exactly right. He was Jeff Goldblum, but that was the character, and it worked really, really well. And I don't think they designed the character to be Jeff Goldblum, or, you know, vice versa. I think the two just are kind of that way. But what I really liked was, although they didn't really mention it, which might have made it slightly more satisfying, he's the brother of Tanalir Tavani, the collector in the Guardians movies. And they've got this really similar air about them.
Yeah.
Not just in the look, they kind of feel quite similar as well. So, again, it was a standalone film. It had its own place. It didn't really extend or work itself into the Marvel universe, but it had these little hints, and some of them worked really well. Some of them didn't. A lot of them were just jokes about something that happened in one of the other films. And yeah, it's nice to see, but those were the ones for me that a lot of the time didn't land.
It didn't fire on as many cylinders as perhaps, for instance, Spider-Man Homecoming. I got far many more laughs in Spider-Man Homecoming than I did in this one because of those little subtleties in the humour. Like, you know, the kids at the high school, you know, felt like real kids, and like, you know, remember that scene in Spider-Man Homecoming where the kid's like, "What are you doing?" He's just like, "Chess."
Yeah.
Those little types of things. I expected more from Taika Waititi in that respect. They were there, but there was...
I agree with you completely, and I also think that it's a classic example of less comedy going a lot further. You laugh more heartily and more out loud when you're not just being inundated with joke after joke after jokes.
We're bursting to get into a little bit more detailed stuff. This is obviously a spoiler-free review We've got a long drive home. We want to do a spoiler-heavy review. So let's wrap this up and let's get into the dirt. As always, we score our movies out of 100 miles and whether it's worth the drive or not. For me, it was a great entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It didn't let me down to a point where I was upset by it. It doesn't have me going, oh, I want to see it again as soon as I'm out of the cinema. I had that with, say, Captain America Winter Soldier, Civil War,
Spider-Man,
the Avengers movie. All these ones were kind of like top tier for me. And everyone's got their list, but it wasn't quite up there for me. I'm going to give it 80 miles out of 100.
80.
Yep.
Wow. They wasted some of the better aspects, or the aspects I would have liked to have seen develop, like Kate Blanchett and like the other big bad guy who they haven't even really got in any of the promotional material hardly, and we hardly discussed here because he was so badly wasted. And I feel like the film really did have a genuine identity crisis. I feel like it was 3 different films, and none of them were complete, and none of them were knit together, and therefore none of them really worked. I mean, I'm not going to go really low, but I think, somewhere around a 72, 73 is a fair score for this.
Yeah.
What we can say, it's a good movie, possibly a great movie, but not fantastic, but definitely worth the drive. So there you go, that's our spoiler-free review of Thor Ragnarok. As Pat says, we're going to roll straight into a spoiler-heavy review, which there'll be a link to or a picture of somewhere on your YouTube screen. And if you enjoyed this, please click like or leave a comment, or you can have a look at our Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/Worth the Drive Movies, and let us know what you think of that. And that has all sorts of links to things like our blog. Other than that, it's cheerio for now from me.
Cheerio from me.
And we'll catch you later on down the road.